Before we talk about ElastiCache, let's talk about caching and in-memory data store. So caching is the process of storing data in a cache. So a cache is a temporary storage area, and the purpose of caches are to optimize for fast retrieval with the trade-off that the data is not durable. So an in-memory data store is where data is stored in memory, so think of RAM, and the trade-offs of storing data in something like RAM is that it has high volatility, meaning that it's low durability. There's a risk of data loss. But access to the data is very, very fast. So often, caches are stored in memory. They don't have to be, but if you want them to be fast, that's where they're normally going to be. So ElastiCache is a fully managed in-memory data store for either the open source data stores, Memcache, or Redis. And so ElastiCache is intended to cache data or HTML fragments, specifically Memcache is known to do the latter, to greatly improve response times in the tens of hundreds of milliseconds. So when I say that, I mean like down to that time, not that it'll shave off 10 to 100 milliseconds. Otherwise, that wouldn't be very useful. So there's kind of an architectural diagram of ElastiCache, but the key emphasis there is that ElastiCache is deployed within a VPC. And so your ElastiCache cluster or data is only accessible when you have resources deployed in the same VPC. AWS tells us the reason why for this limitation is so that it ensures low latency, because if it goes across regions or other places, it's not going to be as fast. Could you use VPC lattice or peering to bring that cache somewhere else? Probably, but the point is that same VPC for the same resources. ElastiCache can be deployed in multiple availability zones for high availability. ElastiCache can be deployed on-premise via AWS Outposts. ElastiCache can use RBAC for Redis 6.0, so you can manage user access via the AWS Management Console. And I actually didn't notice this until I came back and looked at the console, but AWS has another service called MemoryDB, and its big sell is that it has a UI to manage RBAC. But it's interesting to see ElastiCache got this. So when they got serverless, ElastiCache serverless seems like it's competing with their own other service. ElastiCache can be replicated cross-region via ElastiCache Global Data Store. So that is just a feature, additional feature to bring your data into other regions. You can reserve nodes to save money when using ElastiCache Standard. ElastiCache can be automated to perform backups of data stores. So the last three are all, or actually the last four things are all new. ElastiCache was always a very simple service, but now they have backups, they have global data stores, and they have reserve nodes, and they have the serverless mode. So you have two different deploy options. You have the standard mode, which they just call ElastiCache. Why don't they call these capacity modes? I don't know. Why is the serverless mode not called on demand? I don't know. But there's other services that are similar, but for whatever reason, they call this one ElastiCache serverless. Is it serverless? I guess so, because it scales to 0, but I'd rather they just call it like fully managed or something, as a lot of things are not serverless anymore. But we got serverless and standard. The use case for serverless: unpredictable workloads. Standard: predictable workloads. Management automatically scales for serverless. For standard, you're managing the cluster and nodes. For billing, it's going to be based on data stored and eCPU units for serverless. I have no idea how those calculations come into play, but apparently that's a thing for the serverless one. And for standard, it's based on the number of nodes and then the type of node. Just like picking an EC2 instance, you pick a size, and it's very similar there. The standard one can be deployed to on-premise via AWS Outposts, so that is another thing that is worth pointing out. There are two caching options. We have Memcache. This is generally preferred for caching HTML fragments. It's a very simple key value store. The trade-off of being very simple is that it's very fast. Then you have Redis, which can perform many different kinds of operations on your data. It's very good when you have structured data, as when we talk about Redis, you'll see that they have a lot of data structures. Memcache is just strings, key and value. And so the fight here is that which one's faster, and generally it can be argued that Memcache is faster because Redis has less, or it has more going on in it. But I don't know, it's very competitive, and I think that maybe Redis is now the fastest. But anyway, the point is that we have these two options, and depending on what web framework you use, some are plug and play, some are easier to use, so it's really up to you. In terms of feature set, you can see there's a bit of difference. So I'll just get my pen out here to highlight the very key difference here. But you can see that Memcache does not use advanced data structures, does not have snapshots, replications, transactions, pub sub, Lua scripting, geospatial support. Another thing I noticed, which I didn't make a slide about this, but when you have Redis, you can, for very specific versions, I'm not sure which, but you can have encryption in transit and encryption at rest. But I noticed for Memcache, it didn't do that. So specifically for ElastiCache. So I'm not sure if it's just because they're running an older version of Memcache or those capabilities are not there, but Redis appears to have better security, at least on AWS. So there you go.